I had a full glass of beer when I started recording this video and it is now gone, so I'm gonna go replenish and then we're gonna talk about this tone that you just heard. Perfect. All right, so you guys saw the screenshots of this amp throughout the video, and of course the title kind of gives it away a little bit, but this is the Positive Grid Bias FX2 5153 Insane V2. I'm sorry, the full name of that amp is 04 Insane 5153, and it's the version 2, meaning they had a version of this in the original Bias FX plugin. So this is, I guess, their upgraded version, so to speak. Now, as you guys know, I'm going to share my settings here with you. We're going to talk through those. But as you guys know, about a month, maybe 2 months ago, I did some videos on the Bias FX2 plugin, just kind of general tones and so forth. And I kind of shied away from playing through it because at that time I was like, you know, I really like Bias FX, the original FX, better than FX2. But recently I went back to Bias FX2 and started messing around with some of the amps, and of course, when it comes to plugins like this, for me, this is my personal experience with pretty much any plugin that has like multiple amps. For metal, I usually find one, maybe two out of their metal amps that I like. And there's a lot of high gain amps on this thing, and honestly, I don't care for most of them, but this one amp, I've been jamming through this like for many, many days now, and this one amp has stood out to me. So let's dig into my settings here. I'm gonna bring up a screenshot here so you can see just my basic settings for my rhythm tones. Now, one thing to note here is I recorded 2 rhythm tracks. I'm gonna share the differences between those tracks because I like to have the subtle differences, but this is the same settings for both tracks here. Now, you can see the gain here. It's not cranked up super high or anything. With this particular amp sim, you don't really have to have a ton of gain because I still want the clarity of the notes to ring out too, and sometimes when you push the gain, you lose that clarity. All right, now the lows, I did cut the lows. Now, one thing, I'm playing with a 7-string guitar, so obviously you've got some more lows in that guitar alone, so I cut my lows down for that reason. I cut my mids just a little. I played around with like higher mids and really cutting my mids, and where you see it now around the, you know, the 4, a little less than that, that's kind of the sweet spot for mids, and that's pretty much my mids on any rhythm tone, to be honest with you guys. The trebles boost a little bit, and we've got a little presence there as well. Now, my master volume on this particular plugin, I kicked up a bit. This plugin in general, Bias FX2, for whatever reason, the overall volume seems to be lower than the original Bias FX. You know, I compared the two a while back, and I was like, okay, this is a little weird. So I don't know if they did that on purpose or if it's something maybe I'm missing. Who knows? It could be an ID10T error. Now, the difference between the two tracks, and I'm gonna share the screenshots of these as well, is I used a different cabinet for each track. I actually use the same mic, same settings, but different cabs. And to me, this like really makes your track sound full. It's just amazing what it does to the whole mix here. So let's look at the first guitar here, the one I hard pan left. So here, and this is probably the most important important part of this entire video, and when it comes to tone, is I'm not using the normal cabinets that came with it. I actually bought the upgrade to have the Celestion classic speaker package here. So I've got just the standard V30 here, is what you see. Now let's look at the second guitar track, and you're going to see something very similar here, but again, I'm just using a different cabinet. So let's take a look at that. Now here I've got the Greenback cabinet here, and again, this is with that Celestion speaker package, and to me, the Celestion speakers with the Bias FX or Bias amp, whatever you're using, that's just a game changer. Now I made a video on the Celestion speakers a long time ago. Actually, I'll put it up here for you to check out. I'll also put that link in the description of this YouTube video if you want to watch it after you watch this. But yeah, I did a shootout with the Celestion speakers and just like presented all those speakers in different tones I was getting with them, and I'm still impressed with those speakers to this day for amp sims. Now my lead guitar track, I had a short little guitar solo in there. I want to show you the settings for that track. So let's pull up the amp again. I've got the gain cranked up a little bit here, and I do that typically on leads anyway because I want that sustain, you know, just makes your leads kind of sound more full in my opinion. Everything else is pretty much the same except for the mids. I do boost the mids a little on the leads. Now for the cabinet, I ended up using the V30 for this, the Celestion V30, and I just moved my mic a little closer to the cone because that makes it cut through the mix a little bit more in my opinion. Now what about effects? So let's run through the effects. I'm not a big effects guy when it comes to playing metal. Like my metal rhythms, most of the time I leave those just dry, but I do want to run through what we used here. So in the front, of course I've got the noise gate. I put that in front there. My settings are kind of, I guess, normal, so to speak. Now after the gate, I've got the little screamer pedal, the little famous green pedal here for overdrive, and my settings are pretty typical here. The only thing I do a little bit differently, a lot of guys will turn the gain all the way down, and then the level they'll turn all the way up. I don't turn the level all the way up. I leave it about 7 or 8, something like that. For my ears and for this specific plugin, it just sounds better that way. But I do think, I will say this, I do think Positive Grid did a phenomenal job on this little pedal, because I don't only use this pedal for my metal tones, I also use it if I'm playing just lighter rock tones or whatever. It just gives it that tightness and a little bit of that boost, and just sounds better overall with this pedal in front of the amp. Now let's move on to the effects after the amp, which really is like nothing almost. I have a reverb pedal. Again, I usually record my rhythms dry, and if I were recording the track you heard like professionally, I probably would not use reverb. I just used it on this specific track because I wanted to see what it sounded like. Sometimes reverb can muddy up those notes, especially when you're playing 7-string like I am, or if you're playing a lot of riffs like I normally do. So I like my signal to be dry, but again, I was just putting this in there to see what it sounded like. And of course the reverb settings here are pretty low, but just playing by itself, it does give it that extra little kind of like, I don't know, I'm in this cool studio room kind of feel to it. I don't even know if you can hear it in the mix. I turned it off and turned it on, and I really couldn't notice a difference in the mix, so I just left it on. Now for my lead track, I always use some sort of delay, and I've got a very basic delay pedal and delay settings here. Nothing too fancy, just enough to give that delay that kind of spacey feeling, and so you hear those notes kind of roll over. So I like that sound for my lead guitar tracks. So guys, don't forget, I am still giving away my free metal guitar practice guide. There's a link to that in the description of this YouTube channel, so definitely pick that up if you don't have that yet. And actually, for those that do have it, I'm going to be updating that soon, and you will get a free update. So whenever you sign up for this free guide, you'll get free updates for life, as long as you don't unsubscribe to your email or to my email. So yeah, pick that up. The link is in the YouTube description. And guys, please let me know what you think about this tone. Again, this is a Positive Grid Bias FX2 04 Insane 5153 V2. Such a long name. But I like that amp. It's become like my favorite for metal in the Bias FX2 suite of amps. So let me know your thoughts by commenting below. I'd love to chat more about this. And guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all your support. Until the next video, as always, keep it metal.